Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Regan Hillyer, who is going to share her rapid path to a life of abundance. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. We now have listeners in over 64 countries around the world. I'm looking forward to reaching even more people. If you are a listener, please say hi. Send me an email. Let me know how you're doing and where you're from. Also, if there's a topic you want to hear about, or a question, or people I should interview, please let me know. Today's quote: I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by me. Douglas Adams. Do you have the courage to let other people's deadlines to just go by because you're focused on something more important to you? I don't know why we let other people dictate our schedules and take up our time. Today's focus is on time, and as you listen today to how Regan achieved success, also think about her timeline and how quickly it was possible for her. We all have the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While we may choose to give our money away freely, we need to learn to be stingy with our time and guard it closely. Be more careful of your time than your money, because you can always get more money, but you can't get more time. What are the things that take up your time and don't add much value to your life? Just as you track your money, you should also track your time and see where it goes. If you don't know where it's going, you can't do anything to keep more of it. There are many free time tracker apps out there. You can always use a piece of paper and a pen. The goal is to find out where your day goes and then ask, is this how I want to spend my precious time? As you listen to today's episode, ask, what does Regan find important? What does she focus on, and how does success happen for her? Understand, it's for her, not for you. You need to figure out what's important to you and where you should focus your time on to have the success you choose to have. Regan Hillyer is a hugely successful, multi-million-dollar global changemaker, thought leader, serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, global speaker, and mindset coach. She is the founder of Regan Hillyer International, a company dedicated to providing personal development and business training to men and women who have a big message they want to share with the world. Regan has trained thousands of people, helping them build multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses location-free using powerful mindset-changing tools and cutting-edge business development strategies. She specializes in helping experts uncover their true message and launch powerful personal brands, helping them make a big impact and build a legacy. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Regan Hillyer. It's great to have you join us today.
Hi, Rocky. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm excited to have you here and to learn a lot from your journey. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Yes, absolutely. Well, look, I was blessed to have an amazing childhood in the sense that I had and still have two parents that loved me very dearly. But, they really believed in following the system and going to school and getting good grades and going to university and following more of that traditional path. And so that's really the path that I was put on and I started going on. I studied to be an architect, and my parents really thought that I was going to wind up in a 9-to-5 job. And there were a lot of things from my childhood around money, which I got to look at a really deep level and shift in my later adult years. My parents owned a small business, and so I was really shown the highs and the lows of that. One minute it was abundant and it was all exciting and we got to go on a holiday, and the next minute it was struggling to put food on the table. And there were these constant swings, and especially my dad would always say, money doesn't grow on trees. And there were a lot of these limiting money beliefs which were ingrained into me, which I got to kind of shift and recode as my journey went on.
And I think many of us have kind of had those same types of money scripts ingrained in us. And hopefully as adults, we learn to shift them. And we'll chat a little bit more about that a little later in the show. What happened? I mean, you followed the traditional path. Did it work out for you? It doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't sound like it. No, I was doing this university degree and I had one lecturer who got us to do a process of visualization and basically visualize our lives as architects 20 years out from that present moment in time. And obviously everyone got really excited and inspired by that. And I got absolutely terrified. I closed my eyes and I visualized a life that, to be honest, I wasn't madly in love with. And I kind of saw the worst case scenario. I saw myself stuck in a job, working for someone else, not loving my life, definitely not having financial abundance. And just in that moment, I thought, is this really what I'm creating? And so I had a moment where I got up out of that lecture theater and I ran outside. I made a decision and I decided, you know what, I'm going to figure out how do I actually create a life that I love, and what is my purpose, and why am I here? And all of those questions really set me off on the path of personal development. I started literally Googling, how do I quit my 9-to-5 job, even before I was in one? And I came across a lot of different courses and wealth creation techniques, and I really delved into that. There was one point where I was over 6 figures in personal debt, all for coaching and education and online courses and retreats and events that I was attending. And my life wasn't really working. I still wasn't seeing results. I'd had a series of businesses which I tried to start, which all failed drastically in my face. And nothing was shifting. And I said to one of my mentors, I said, look, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not cut out for this path. Maybe I'm not meant to be successful. Maybe I should just go and get a job and live into the life that was expected of me. And he said to me, Regan, you've got this all backwards. You're looking at all these strategies, trying to create wealth, trying to create a life that you love. You're looking at all these things outside of you, and you're missing the piece that 80% of the game is inside, and it's how you're conditioning yourself to succeed. And when I realized I wasn't really doing any work on that, that set me off in a whole new direction. And that's when things really started clicking in place for me.
Did you finish school or did you just walk out in that moment?
A bit of both. I walked out, and that's when I started my personal development inquiry and journey, but I did actually complete my degree. Yeah, I completed my 3 years of architecture school, but in that time, I basically launched my first companies and I was completely financially self-sufficient by the end of it. And I was very clear that although I was completing this, I was not going to be an architect.
I ask these questions because I think the audience needs to understand that you have these epiphanies, but they take time for them to come to fruition. And that's what it sounds like in your case. You had the epiphany, but then you still had to kind of continue down a path you were while you were creating and forging your new path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I basically cut a deal with my parents because they were so intent, especially my mother, on me completing this degree. And so I cut a deal. I said, okay, look, I will finish this so that I have something to fall back on if really none of this works, even though Every day I was dreaming, I was journaling, I was visioning, I was connecting with the life that I desired to create. But that was the deal, that I would finish what I started, rather.
And that's usually the deal we all have to make. What did people around you say, like your friends?
I had absolutely no support at this time. All of the people around me thought I was really crazy. When I started going to wealth creation events and seminars and personal development talks and things like this, I constantly got told that I was going into environments that were going to scam me. I got told that it was all too good to be true. I got told that, look, I should just be grateful for the life that I have. I literally didn't have one person in my environment that actually said, hey, that's a great idea. You should go for that. I started to meet people at events, and over time I started to create and change my environment and release some of those people that were holding me back. But again, it took time, and eventually I moved from New Zealand to Australia once I completed that degree, and I was standing on my own feet in terms of business and life. And my big reason for that move was environment, because I wanted to move into an environment of people that were doing amazing things in the world and would actually support my dreams rather than asking me why I had those dreams.
And that's the thing. You are the average of the 5 people around you. And if you're surrounded by people who are fearful or who are going to hold you back or not sharing your dreams, then unfortunately you have to change the people you're around. It doesn't mean you can't be friends with those people. It's just that you need to find a new environment that actually allows you to flourish and to go forward.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 80-20 rule. What did he mean when he said that 80% is on mindset?
Absolutely. My mentor at the time was referencing the fact that, 80% of success in any area of your life that you're looking to create is really created from the inside out. So we're talking mindset, we're talking your energy, we're talking your inner game when it comes to your mind and your visualization and what you're connected to and what you're focusing on and the version of you that you choose to bring to the table each and every single day. If you're out there and you're just joining the dots with all of these financial strategies in order to create success, but underneath you're telling yourself that you don't deserve it and you're never going to make it and it's going to be really hard work, then that inner reality does dictate your external results at the end of the day. So I was completely unaware of this. And yeah, until I flipped this, I was about 80% strategy. And if you were lucky, 20% the internal game. Until I flipped it, nothing was really working prior to that.
Was that like an overnight flip, or was that also like college? It took time to make the change internally.
It absolutely took time. It was overnight in the sense that something clicked for me. It was definitely a moment where the penny dropped and it was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. But, it took time, and it took time to condition myself into that. And to be honest, I'm still doing that. I'm still looking at what is the highest version of me and what is the next level and who do I get to become in order to embody this next version of me. And, I remember when I was going to all these events and I was still at university, I had no idea what my purpose was. I was in the red financially and I just had some big hopes and some big dreams. And, I got invited to one of the speaker parties at one of the personal development events that I went to. I made friends with one of the speakers and he said, hey, you should come along. So I went that night and I walked into that room and there were 40 to 50 extremely, in my eyes, successful people in that space. And I'd seen them all speak throughout the day. They were all heart-centered. They were doing amazing things. They were making a lot of money. And I remember walking into that room feeling absolutely terrified and that I did not fit in. Every part of me wanted to run. And instead of running, I made a choice. I thought, okay, let me just survive this evening, even though I don't feel good enough to be here. Let me just survive it. And I'm just going to chat to them. I'm going to interview them. I'm going to find out how have they created their success. And so that's what I did. I spent the evening asking them all that one question. And I left that evening totally confused because all 40 to 50 of them had created success in a totally different way. And I thought, there really is no secret. One of them's done it in real estate. One of them's done it through social impact. There were all these different, strategies and scenarios going on. And so I remember sitting there after this evening thinking, okay, what do these people have in common? What is similar about them? And I realized that they felt the same to be around. I noticed that they walked a certain way. I noticed that their eye contact was high and their head and their chin was up and their shoulders were back. I noticed that they held themselves a certain way. I noticed that they all seemed confident and they felt good to be around. They felt warm and confident and friendly. And I looked at how I'd walked into that room, and it was almost the complete opposite. I wanted to be invisible. My eyes were lowered to the ground. My head was slumped. My shoulders were slumped. I was the absolute opposite of them. And I thought, well, what if I just start embodying that? And what if I start just being the millionaire version of Regan right now, even though my current reality is so far away from where I actually desire to be? What if I just start being that? And when I chose that, that was one of the moments where one of the pieces of conditioning clicked in, because I noticed that magical things started happening around me. People would see me differently. Opportunities would come my way. And it was all because I just started to choose to be a little bit different.
They say fake it till you make it, right? Play the role that you want to become. In a sense, you've got to step into it, even though you're not ready. You've been through multiple times, like where you're stepping into an uncomfortable situation and you just go. Where did that come from in you? Is it just something you've had, or was it something that was developed?
I feel it's been developed. I feel it's been conditioned. There are so many moments in my reality that I can think of where things seem so big, or they seem so scary, or so out there, or such a big leap. And I've always thought to myself, well, what's going to happen if I don't do this? What's at stake? And, what I notice is that when I really leap in a big way, it's often because it's not about me. If you're having a bad day and you think, what, I could just stay in bed today and, give up on that dream or that goal. If that's just about you, then you'll probably do that. But the minute that you connect to the people that you're actually committed to helping and impacting and inspiring and lifting up and doing whatever service piece you do in the world, the minute you ask yourself, well, am I really willing to let all of those people down because I want to stay in bed? Something clicks in you. So I feel like this has been developed over time.
And I've seen you say that you absolutely can have it all. What is all to you?
Yes. I think all is such a beautiful word because it means something, different to every single person. And having it all to me is literally living into my dream reality across the board in every area of my life. There's so many people that'll tell you can have it all, but not all at once. I mean, even Oprah says that, but I disagree. I really believe that all areas of our lives are linked, and that if we're going to work on our money and our business, then why not also feel amazing and elevate your health at the same time? And why not elevate your intimate relationship? And why not elevate your purpose? And I really believe it's all linked collectively. And so for me, having it all is living into the best version of your reality, but without any sacrifices. No more having to sacrifice one area of life for the other.
That's interesting. And I truly believe that you do have to live life holistically and in harmony. I guess when you say sacrifice, you're saying sacrifice one area of your life for the other, which is very true. We have to make choices, but you also have to make sacrifices to have great success. In other words, and then the sacrifice is doing the hard work, I guess, or saying no to eating bad food or making those types of choices, correct?
Exactly. There's always going to be this element of sacrifice, but what are you choosing to sacrifice? For example, are you sacrificing the negative people in your environment that you are choosing not to be around anymore? Are you maybe sacrificing a little bit of social time so that you can go and work on your business? Are you making those conscious choices? Because if you're not, and you're letting the sacrifice piece be unconscious, then what happens is then that's when we see areas of life get out of balance. That's when we see someone make all the money and have the amazing businesses, but then all of a sudden their health is in not great shape. Or, we see someone absolutely nail their health and maybe they're achieving fitness goals and they're about to compete on stage in a fitness competition, but their relationship goes out the window because they haven't allocated time. So I feel like, yes, there is going to be focus points and there's going to be things which you consciously choose to give up or say no to, but are you doing this in a way where you're doing it intentionally, or are you just letting things slip across the board?
And that's true. I think that word right there is powerful, is being intentional in your choices and figuring it all out. And I think you said that because I've heard you say each and every aspect of your life has to be in tune and in balance to call in and to achieve the abundance that you want. And you mentioned some of those. We talked about health and time and money. What are all of the different areas that you think of when you look at every aspect of your life?
Absolutely. Well, for me, firstly is health, right? Because if you don't have your health, you can't really do much on this planet. So I always start there. And then I love also considering wealth, also relationships. Purpose is super important. I love looking at mindset as a category of life. How is your mental state each and every single day? And then also your emotions, right? Because if your emotions are out of control, it gets really challenging to get some things done. And then I also love tapping into contribution as well and spirituality. I feel like those are some of the key elements that I really love thinking about and considering every day.
And those are very similar to the same ones that we talk about here all the time. So I think we're very much in alignment on those.
Yeah.
I know that you've spent, I think you said, over millions of dollars on self-development. What does that look like?
Yes, that looks like in excess of a 10-year journey. That looks like endless coaching, mentoring, courses, education, retreats, live events, doing whatever it takes in order to unlock the next piece. And, you know, it's interesting, going back actually earlier into our conversation, I often look at all the funds that have been invested and I look at, okay, what were the biggest pieces and also what have been the most beneficial pieces? And so the biggest pieces in terms of the financial input that's gone in, and also I believe the biggest return on investment each and every single time was the piece around environment, and still is. It was the dinner with a celebrity with 10 other people. It was a one-on-one day with a mentor who could look into my eyes and say, Regan, I actually believe you're going to do this. It was the touch point environment pieces with the people that really made the difference. And of course, you know, the online courses were important. The books were important. The retreats with 40 other people, like all of it is, you know, it all clicks together. It's all important. But the biggest pieces have been getting around the people that either have the results that I desire or know how to help me get them faster.
And that almost sounds like having a coach or an advisor to help you get to that next level. And I think that's very true. We all need help to get to where we want to go. And there's two ways to get help. One is to get someone who's kind of going on the journey with you, which is nice, but it's a lot faster and easier when you have someone who's already been on the journey and knows how to get there, because they can help you get there much faster as well. And they can look at you and say, oh, make that small little tweak and you'll be able to take the next step. Is that what you have found?
Absolutely, 100%, to the point where I wouldn't try and do anything new in my life without actually seeking support of someone who has either got the results or can help me go faster in terms of getting those results. You know, if I decided tomorrow for some reason that in a few months' time I wanted to run a marathon, that's something I've never done before. I wouldn't just, you know, go to the gym and start blindly running on a treadmill and just eat whatever I want and hope that it's going to work. I would say, well, okay, who is either a marathon runner or a coach of helping people to run marathons? How do I get closer to them? How do I get their resources or their time, or even better, their in-person experience in order for them to tell me, hey, look, don't do this, and just start doing this, this, and this, and massively speed up the process.
And that's what it does. I think it allows you to achieve your results so much the faster. Now, you spent a lot of time and money on yourself. I guess the question always comes back, does this really lead to profit in business?
I absolutely believe so. I mean, I don't think there would be any chance that I would be where I am in terms of business, money, or profit right now if I hadn't have gone so deep into mentoring and investing in myself. But here's the catch. I think I would have done it anyway. But the question is when. because I really believe that if you're clear and if you have a dream and a vision and you're impact driven and you're committed and you show up every day, you're going to do it. It's not a question of, are you going to do it or not? You're going to do it. But in how many years? Is it going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? Like, what does that look like? So for me, with where I am today in business and money and profit, I go, okay, cool. Yeah, I would have done this anyway, but I'm super grateful that I invested in myself in order to have it now, not somewhere down in the future.
And that's true. You get to enjoy more of life being where you want to be. Again, it's always the journey, and you have to decide what that end goal is for you and how big you want to get, because all of these choices have consequences, and you have to figure it out for yourself and how it matches with your dreams, not living someone else's dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What have you seen holds other people back from success in their dreams?
There's many elements. One of the biggest things that I see is actually people not believing in themselves. People not actually believing that they're deserving and worthy and capable of actually living into their dreams and their realities of what they're calling in across the board in their life and receiving it right now, and that was me for so many years. And I found that, when I was in the beginning and I started working with these different mentors and coaches, and I would tell them my dream and my goal, and they would look at me, and more often than not, they would say, I really think you're going to do this. And I remember looking back at so many of them going, do you really think so? I was so riddled with self-doubt, and I thought I would do it, but I thought it would take me my whole life, And so in the beginning, especially, I just made a habit of borrowing some belief from some other people that I'd surrounded myself with that did believe in me. And for anyone listening, just remember that it's okay to borrow some belief of someone else, of anyone who sees something in you that you can't yet see in yourself. Just borrow that belief and stick with that and connect with that each and every single day until you get to a place where you totally believe it yourself to be true.
We need others to believe in us and to propel us and to cheer us on. Having cheerleaders is a very important thing. And I don't think people understand the importance of a cheerleader or even a squad of cheerleaders in your life. Do you have those?
Absolutely. Yes, I do now. I'm so grateful and I'm so fortunate. And I feel like there's really no one in my life that isn't a cheerleader. But remember, it didn't start off like that. I had not one cheerleader in the beginning. And, I really had to create that environment and move away from the people who weren't cheerleaders and look at intentionally, okay, who would be a cheerleader and what kind of people do I want to surround myself with? And so, it's absolutely possible. And yeah, I'm so grateful now for all the people that do support me. And likewise, I support them at the same time.
When we began and you were talking about growing up, you said you had to change some of your money scripts. What were some of those money scripts you had, and how did you go about changing them?
There were many. Like I said in the beginning, one of the big ones was hearing on repeat, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Money's not everywhere. There's only a small amount of money. One of the biggest things, especially from my dad, was this element of, you can have whatever money you want, but you've got to work really, 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 really hard for it. And, I would see him work really, really hard for it, and he would achieve some of his goals and he would go for it. And he created a lot of success in what he was doing, but at what cost? It took so much sweat, blood, and tears, and that's a quote directly from my childhood. And so I had a lot of that, especially in the beginning. I think even I was probably earning just over $1 million a year, and I was about 24 years old, and I worked for it. And yes, you've got to work and you've got to show up, but this was a little bit ridiculous. I was probably sleeping 3 or 4 hours a day. I was absolutely mad in order to make it work. And, when it came to then growing my companies and employing people, I found it so hard to release control and actually let other people step in order to scale and leverage things, because that would mean that I didn't have to work as hard potentially at that thing that I was doing. So, it took a lot to actually see all of this. And I used to sit down and journal a lot and ask myself, okay, what is currently blocking me or stopping me with money? What stories am I telling myself? And I would just write this stuff down. I would say, I don't believe that there's enough. And I believe that, you've got to work so hard, or you make it, then it's going to go away. And I just purge all of this stuff down on paper. And then from that place, I would look at it and go, okay, is this really what I want to choose as my reality? And of course, the answer was no. And so then I'd turn to a new page in my journal and I'd start writing out what I chose to believe about money. So I choose to believe that money is infinite. I choose to believe that I get to receive and it feels really good. I choose to believe that I get to do less and receive more. And I would just write out all of these money beliefs. And, when I first started doing this, Rocky, I looked at that list of beliefs and I thought, well, that would be great if I did believe that, but I don't believe that. I still believe it's really hard and I still believe all the stuff from my childhood. And so this really took time. This didn't happen because I wrote it down once and stuck it on a vision board and then it was done. This happened because every single day I would sit down and I would condition myself and I would write out my money beliefs. And you get to this point where you start writing them out and then you realize they're starting to stick. They're starting to click. You wouldn't sit down and write out, I choose to believe the sky is blue, the sky is blue, the sky is blue. You just be like, of course the sky's blue. And you do hit a place with this money work where you go, of course it gets to be easy. Of course it's abundant. Of course it's infinite. Of course I get to receive more when I do less. Of course. And your energy around this changes, but it took me time.
And I think this kind of speaks directly to taking control of our unconscious mind, because our conscious mind and our unconscious minds are on two different wavelengths sometimes. And it's kind of helping to bring them together so that your conscious mind is doing what you want and you've programmed your unconscious mind to get rid of all those patterns that were programmed into us as kids and pushing you towards where you truly want to go. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, the thing is, we store all of this in our unconscious from our early childhood. And if we're not aware of what's going on in our unconscious mind, then our unconscious mind is ruling the show. And this is where we see people with money, for example, working so hard and doing all these strategies and going for it, right? But they're not seeing the results because they haven't done the work to condition their unconscious mind to succeed. So even with the last, journaling exercise that I just shared, all I was doing was taking everything that was running the show deep down in my unconscious and bringing it to the light, bringing it to the surface, and actually shifting it from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind. And when we're conscious of something, that's when we can shift it. It's a lot harder to shift something that we're unaware of, that we're unconscious to, that's on autopilot under the surface. And so we all have this stuff and it takes time, but if we do the work, we can bring it to the surface and go, oh, actually, let me shift that. Let me recode that. That doesn't necessarily serve me. Let me put a new chip in this program right now. And yeah, that's where the magic happens.
And I think that's why lottery winners, when they win all the money, are usually broke in 10 years because they've never reprogrammed themselves. They're used to not having money. And when money comes, they do everything they can to get rid of it, essentially, even though they try not to. We will be back with Regan in a moment. Regan had a lot of help that helped her achieve success. In order to recode our mindsets, we need a new program. We need to determine which programs need to go. You can do this alone, or you can do what she did and get help. I help small business owners focus on the profit in their business so they can increase it quickly and use it as fuel to build the life of their dreams. Profit provides the fuel in both business and life that allows you to make choices you want, to have freedom and the space to create a better you. I help find harmony across all the areas of life that are important and build the personal plan that allows you to live on your terms. A quick email gets you started. It's rocky@richersoul.com. Now, let's get back to our amazing conversation with Regan and how she reprogrammed herself. How have you been able to reprogram the chip? Is there a technique you use, or is there a whole host of techniques? What seems to work for you?
Yeah, there's been many, many different tools and techniques. I think journaling has been the number one biggest, most powerful, most impactful thing for me in terms of recoding all of this. I've worked with a lot of different tools, from journaling to breathwork to visualization to working with sacred plant medicine. There's a whole range of different modalities, but the thing that's made the biggest impact over the longest period of time has been journaling. And I think it's just because it's so simple and so easy. People say, I don't know how to journal. Well, you sit down, you get a journal and a pen and you write. And the better quality questions you ask yourself, the better quality the answers you're going to get from your unconscious mind. So I love asking myself, what's currently blocking me or stopping me around my money? And then going into, well, what would I choose to believe instead, right? I love tapping into pieces around visioning with journaling and asking myself, if I was to unapologetically ask for what I want in my life, what would be different? And when you write out this vision piece, don't write it out from a space of, well, I'd love this and I hope for this and I pray for that. You're putting it in the future if you do that. You want to really journal into the now. So you want to write it out in a way where it feels like it's done. So for example, I'm so happy and grateful that I now manifested this amount of money. I'm so happy and grateful that my business is now here. I'm so happy and grateful that all of the success now allows me to do X, Y, Z. So you're really pulling that into the now. So I think journaling is so simple and so easy for people, and it's been one of the biggest pieces for me.
And you kind of mentioned that as a business owner, they would journal what they wanted their business to be, as if it was happening now. I have X amount of sales. My customers say this about me. I have this many employees, whatever it is that they are looking for in their business, correct?
Correct. And beyond what you actually write on the paper, it's the energetic state that you're getting in, because the thing that you're having the most emotional charge linked to, that's what's going to manifest in your reality. So if you're living and you're in an emotional state of fear every day and you're so worried that something's going to happen in your business, chances are it's probably going to happen unless you shift that. The same applies to positive emotional states. So if you're journaling and you're writing down, you almost get in this trancey dream state where you start actually feeling what it feels like to receive the money. You start feeling what it feels like to run a company like that with that many employees. You start getting into the vibration of it being done. And it's from that place that your own frequency starts to change and shift, and we start emitting a different frequency out into the world. And everything in our external reality, again, is a reflection of what's going on within. So the more we can embody it within, the faster it's going to show up in our external reality.
And that's true, because then you're walking with confidence, as you talked about when you walked into that room full of the speakers. You're walking in with the confidence that attracts other people around you and kind of brings forth, because people want to be with other people who are confident, who are successful. And if that's what you're projecting, then it becomes so. And it's still a lot of work, and you have to do the work, but it starts to attract things to you to help to make it easier.
Absolutely. And there's some people that get caught up here and they say, well, Regan, if I'm just going to fake it till I make it, does that mean I'm walking around and I'm out of integrity? And so there's a piece here where it's not about, doing your visioning and writing down what you want and then going out into the world and just lying about it. But it's instead getting really raw and real and honest with where you're at, but being so connected to your dream in every minute, to the point where even if someone asks you, what's going on in your life, you can say, well, I'm here right now, but this is where I'm going. This is what I'm connected to. This is what I'm building. This is what I'm calling in. This is what I'm manifesting right now. So it's a fine line between actually being out of integrity and being deeply in integrity with your dreams and showing up in that vibration.
And people love dreams, and people love to follow dreams. And to do that, as I think back at my childhood, I think two of the biggest dreams was Martin Luther King. I have a dream, and going to the moon, right? Those were two big dreams, and both of them kind of came to be because somebody dreamed big, and everyone loves to follow that. So I think that's very much true. You recently wrote a new book. It's the Abundance Code Book. Why did you decide to write that?
Absolutely. So this is co-written with my partner. And to be honest, I feel like this book was handed to us. Neither of us wanted to write it. So we were both actually writing our own independent books at the time. We were very busy. We had a lot of things going on. And we were sitting in California one day and we started having this conversation outside by a fire. And we started saying, you know what? If people would just realize this one thing, they'd be so much more abundant. And then he said, yeah. And if they just started doing this, they'd be so much more abundant. And I said, yeah. And then there's this, right? And then we realized that something really amazing was happening. And we grabbed a journal and we started writing down all these key points, if you like. We got to the end of the process a few hours later and we added them up and we realized that there were 52 key points. And we didn't know what they were. We just thought, okay, well, that's interesting. That's some content. We left it. It was a few weeks later, the same process started happening, except we were in a different conversation, one where we said, you know, if people stopped doing this, that would unblock abundance. And if they stopped doing that, then they'd be so much more abundant. And we wrote down these points as well. We got to the end of that process and we realized there were 52. And then we took these 52 and we flipped back pages and pages to the last list. And we realized that the 52 codes, if you like, that we'd written down actually matched up the other 52. And then we thought, okay, this is something. This is coming through us for a reason. And we looked at each other and we said, look, I think this is a book. And then we got very clear that this was called the Abundance Codes, 52 codes to actually help people unlock abundance in every area of their life. So yes, I feel like we didn't really decide to write it, but we obviously chose to after that.
We talk a lot about the things that people should do. What are some of the biggest things that people should stop doing?
Yes, there are many. All the different abundance codes, they run through 9 different categories of life we actually touched on earlier before in the interview. So each of them are unique to that. So specifically around their health and their energy, for example. But in terms of, money, for example, one of the ones is literally similar to what we talked about, staying away from people that are negative, staying away from people that are actually limiting them. One of the codes as well actually goes into the limiter. And we talk about what's blocking the actual abundance codes coming through. And we talk about the fact that people think that they're separate from God or from source or from the universe. And when they actually realize that they're connected to that and they stop creating the separation, they realize they have a total universal flow of abundance, of manifestation, of all their dreams and desires within them. So we've found that a lot of these things that people get to stop doing are subtle refinements. They're not huge things which are drastically going to change what they do every day, but they're in the subtle little details around how they think, how they move, and what they choose in the world.
And we've talked about that many times. I think people think that they need to make drastic shifts, and they don't. It's small, teeny changes add up over time to massive success, to the life you desire and to your dreams.
Right. It's like hitting a golf ball 2 degrees different. That ball ends up in a very different location on the golf course. But people think that they've got to go learn a whole new golf swing technique. And it's a subtle refinement. You're right.
That's the thing is when you're looking for subtle changes, you really do need help, because I think it's hard for us to see the subtle sometimes in ourselves.
Yes, I love to call them blind spots. It can be so challenging to see these tiny little blind spots. But from what I've noticed with people is that it's kind of like once you have someone from the inside out looking in who can go, hey, can you see this refinement? You do start having a self-awareness where you start picking up more yourself. And I love talking to people about the power of 2%. I say, look, you're trying to do 100% different right now. What if you just committed on doing just 2% different today and then 2% different tomorrow? And imagine you have $1,000 in the bank and every day you earn 2% interest, right? And let's say that you decide not to take that out, but you leave that accumulating in the bank. Over time, you have a much larger amount of money, right? And it's the same with change. All of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, wow, my life is completely different, but not because I did 1,000% different yesterday, because I committed to just shifting 2% each and every single day.
And 2% over a year is over 700%, which means you're $100,000 goes to 7,000, and that's year one. The next year you go again, 700%. It just continues to grow, and that creates massive, massive results. You talked a little bit about spirituality, and I always forget to dig in with our guests to talk about that. What does spirituality mean to you?
Yeah, spirituality to me is every single day, every single minute, every single breath being in the deepest connection possible with whatever you believe the highest version of you is connected to. So this might be the label of God, this might be the universe, this might be source, whatever that is for you. There's no right or wrong on these tags, but it's that deep connection to that. It's the availability to be available throughout the day in order to be guided, in order to surrender to being supported through that. And I find that people that do nurture this really deep spiritual connection tend to just be in so much more flow within their lives, right? Rather than being disconnected and choosing to be separate and feeling that they have to figure out their whole life all by themselves, all on their own.
And it's wonderful when you are in the flow.
It is. It's the only way.
Is there anything else about living an abundant life that we should have talked to, but I didn't get a chance to ask you?
I feel like this has been a really beautiful deep dive conversation, and we've covered so many facets. I feel like the core of it all that we've talked about really comes down to choosing it at the end of the day. I really believe that you can create anything you desire in your reality, but how bad do you want it? And are you actually choosing it? Are you choosing it? And I don't just mean once and then forgetting about it. Are you choosing it every day, every breath? Are you re-choosing it? When you forget to choose it, are you going back without any guilt or shame and choosing it again? It's a constant reaffirmation of what you're calling into your reality. And if you do just that, I think your life would be super different.
And that's not a big step to take, right? To just constantly think about your dreams and take little steps toward them. I mean, it adds up over time.
Right. It's compounding success, like we talked about with the 2%. And, even if you sit down once a day and you choose it, that's a great start. And then put it on your laptop screensaver and then have it on your phone. And then when you open your wallet, there's a Post-it note in there, whatever you need to do physically in order to train yourself to re-choose it. I love getting people to set a little alarm on their phone once an hour, every hour throughout the day, right? And the alarm goes off. And for 30 seconds, just choose your dreams. 30 seconds, close your eyes and actually connect with what does it feel like if these dreams were already my reality. And guess what? You'll hit a place where that alarm will go off and you'll go, oh yeah, I'm already thinking about that. I'm already choosing that. I'm already one with that.
You're in the flow. Maybe you've already suggested it, but based on our conversation, what's one action step people can take this week to move forward?
Absolutely. Well, I feel this element of choosing your dream and your reality is a really big piece. And then a second layer to that, if you feel like you're already doing that, is pull apart one of the journaling practices that we went through on this interview and go deeper into the visioning piece, or, releasing anything which is blocking you or stopping you, writing out your reality, and commit to doing that. Do that once a day, 10, 15 minutes, and do it 7 to 10 days in a row, and just watch what starts shifting in terms of your reality and the abundance you get to create.
And the best way to do that is to put it on your calendar, schedule the time, make it happen. It's a lot easier when you tie it to something. I'm going to get my cup of coffee and then I'm going to sit down and write for 15 minutes. Whatever your trigger event is at a time that works for you. Maybe it's lunchtime. I'm going to get my lunch and I'm going to spend 15 minutes journaling. Find something to tie it to trigger you, and put it on your calendar and make it happen.
Exactly.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. Regan, what's your secret to living an abundant life?
Secret to living an abundant life is living it in each and every single breath. It's changing your state to literally become one with your dreams and your visions and your goals and everything that you're calling in. And that can take time to condition yourself, but trust me, it's worth it when you really commit to doing that.
And so you say it takes time. And I know you talked earlier about how long it's taken. I mean, what's a time frame that people could expect? Just to give them a frame of reference. Is it a week, a month, a year, 10 years?
Look, I think it depends what you're calling in. And from what I've noticed is that when people start out, it can take a little bit longer because it's new concepts, new things, new changes that they're making, new commitments, new businesses. It can take a little bit to solidify the groundwork sometimes. But what I have noticed is that the more and more you accelerate on this path, the faster you go. And in some ways, the easier it gets and the more it gets to be about the little refinements that we talked about. I think it's case by case when it comes to the goals, but just know that if you really commit to everything we talked about in this interview, chances are it will probably show up sooner than you expect if you're expecting to really do the work in the long term.
And that's true. And you should turn around and see how far you've come while you're on the journey. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Many things. I think one of the big things would be do whatever it takes to surround yourself with people that believe in you. We talked about borrowing belief from people that can maybe see things in you that you don't have the capacity to see within yourselves. If I got that from the very beginning, I would have just cut straight to making that happen in my reality rather than easing myself into that over time.
And it's true. The things that are our super talents or the things that we're amazing at, we take for granted because we just assume everyone else can do them.
Yes.
And they can't. And we don't see it. And so it really helps to have other people around you to tell you what those great things are. What is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
I think the piece of advice I would give to my younger self is I would just say, hey, it's all going to be okay. You don't need to stress out and worry and constantly freak out that nothing's going to work. You really just get to surrender to the process and actually enjoy the process. I spent a lot of my younger years kind of searching for the outcome and trying to get somewhere. And then I realized that even if I got to the somewhere, it wasn't that enjoyable if I hadn't enjoyed the process. So really enjoying each and every single day, regardless of where I was at on the journey.
And life happens in the journey, and you need to enjoy the journey because the end of the journey is the end of life. And depending on what you love, I mean, decide where you go next, but you've got to enjoy that journey as you go through. If people would like to learn more about you, find you, and connect, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. You can go to reganhillyer.com or connect on social media on Regan Hillyer. It's all under my name on Facebook, Instagram, all of the social platforms, and there's a lot of free content on there. So definitely reach out, send me a message, and let me know that you came from this show.
And I will put all of that in the show notes to make it easy for people to find. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Rocky. It's been great.
I enjoy having successful guests to learn from. Some of them are my friends, and some are people that I'm newly introduced to. The goal for me is to learn from them and how they found their path and what nuggets can I take away. Timeline therapy, NLP, manifestation are some of the programs many people have benefited from, but you have to be ready for it. Let's take a look at manifestation. I've heard that people who create life plans, vision boards, and business plans and write them down and never look at them again are very likely to achieve those goals that they set 10 years later. Why? I don't think it's magic. I think they set a destination. They took the time to think about it. And when you do that, your brain starts working behind the scenes to show you the opportunities to find it. If you remember back to Rebel Brown, she said that the conscious brain processes about 127 bits out of 2 million bits of information coming into our subconscious mind. That's why you think of buying a certain car and all of a sudden you see them everywhere, because your conscious mind has its filter on to that car. Once you know where you're going, it's easier to get there. Your conscious mind is filtering for opportunities. A lot of this is timing, and you have to be ready to accept it. And when you are, all of a sudden, it's, oh my God, why didn't I see this before? When you go through many of these therapies, there are experts and there are beginners. You need to figure out who it is you're working with. I don't do any of these. What I do is help people get clarity and build their life in harmony. Please be careful with what you manifest because everything is a trade-off. That fancy house or being a rock star or president of the United States all come with trade-offs. Being thin and in shape requires a sacrifice of time and choices in food and getting to the gym. You have to make the trade-offs to get what you want. It's not like this is what I want and here it is. It's a long or sometimes fast path to your desires based on how many trade-offs you're willing to make. Be careful for what you wish for. You may just get it. I have to admit, with today's action step, I don't journal. Maybe I should. I think it's a great action step for a lot of people, and for some people, it's therapeutic. For me, it might be better if I have an audio journal. And this podcast is kind of like that. If you're still listening, you must have liked this episode. So please share it with a few friends, and if you get a chance, leave a review. I'd appreciate that. You can also connect with me on Facebook. There's both a Facebook page and a Facebook group for Richer Soul. In the Facebook group, I usually post upcoming interviews, and you'll get a chance to let me know what questions I should ask future guests. So, what's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. Can I help you achieve your goals through coaching and accountability? Just email me, and we can start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit for coaching. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward towards their dreams. You can reach me at rocky@richersoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.